Hello, St. John's School community, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Ahead with St. John's School Head of School, Lorraine Lago. I'm here today with Mr. David Sanabria, our secondary school principal. And before we begin, we wanted to clarify some misconceptions regarding the next few days of school, the next few weeks, and the future of the second semester of this academic school year. Yesterday, the head of school sent out a communication informing all of you that starting on Monday, March 16th, we will be activating our distance learning plan. As you know, the situation in Puerto Rico changes daily, so we have not made any decisions beyond spring break. Let me clarify that. We have not made any decisions about where school or how school will be held beyond spring break. Our spring break this year is from April 6th to April 10th. And during that week, we will revisit the situation in Puerto Rico and make decisions based on what is happening at the time. St. John's School felt that we needed to act quickly and be an example and a leader in our community of doing what it takes to help the entire community. Right now, the situation and the decisions we're making are not just about us or our immediate school community, but they are about helping our entire island and potentially the entire world in containing this epidemic. We want to make sure that the people who really need the care are the ones at the hospitals getting what they need. We don't want to overwhelm the system, and we want to act quickly. Data shows that countries who act quickly have better results. So with that said, and with that clarification.
And if I can add anything to that, I want to make sure that anyone I speak to, I make sure they know that the decisions that we are making were made by a consensus of a committee that includes specialists in all the areas needed to make a well-informed decision. And this is not something that was done in any way haphazardly or prematurely. I actually think it's a very courageous and responsible way to act facing this situation. And we are very proud of the decision that we have made, and we're confident that it was the right one. Also, it's underscoring what Lorraine just said. We're scheduled to return on April 12th from spring break, and if everything goes well and the situation is contained, we should be hearing from the community. If not, no one really knows what's going to happen, but hopefully we'll be back before the end of the school year, and this is not actually the end. So we're hopeful that things will get better.
We are. And just a reminder to the students out there, you will have to attend classes, albeit distance classes, but there will be curriculum, content, and skill learning, and you will be responsible for work. So with that clarification, welcome, Mr. Sanabria.
Thank you.
So in this show, we talk about how St. John's plans for continuing to be at the forefront of education.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission statement says that we create dynamic learning environments, that we shape students who will shape the changing world,
Mm-hmm.
and that we specifically, and this is important for this conversation, promote the development of individual talents in each and every student.
Mm-hmm.
So in support of that mission, we have made changes throughout the years to make sure that what happens in a day-to-day basis at our school reflects and moves us toward that mission.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk today about some changes to the graduation requirements that Mr. Sanabria and I have been talking about for quite some time now,
Mm-hmm.
and that were approved recently by our Board of Trustees and will be in effect in a transitionary mode beginning next year. So tell me a little bit, Mr. Sanabria, about the process of analyzing graduation requirements.
Sure. Like you well said, we've always considered ourselves to be a leader in college preparatory education. And we were, for the past several years, I want to say 3 to 4 years back, looking carefully at our graduation requirements that were in place, because we found that at times that were limiting in some ways for some of our students in the upper grades as they began to develop areas of interest, areas of talent that they wanted to pursue. But in order for them to fulfill these graduation requirements that were kind of, I don't want to say generic, but they apply to a very wide population, we felt that it didn't recognize those individual interests and particularities that some of our students bring to the table. And we have basically evolved over the last 10, 20, 30 years to the point where what students will need in the future is very different than what when other people of previous generations attended school. We have students that are going to be facing a world that will require more skills than specific contents, and we have to help them develop those skills and prepare them to be successful in college and beyond professionally by doing that. So we began to conduct research and looked at other some of the United States and beyond, some of the best independent schools elsewhere. And we looked at what they were, their basic graduation requirements. And we realized that their requirements were very flexible. They were different than ours, and it allowed students to pursue those areas of interest. So with that careful contemplation and process of looking in detail at what all these other schools were doing, we began to see, and we consulted with everyone from the college counselors. They in turn consulted with admissions officers in many colleges that we work with, and we came to the determination of proposing a revised set of graduation requirements. Those were put through the process of being presented first to the Faculty and Curriculum Committee, then to the Board of Trustees, and they were approved. And we're going to present those today.
Thank you. It's important that I highlight that you said we researched other very competitive boarding and non-boarding schools in the United States, and that the process of analyzing what we wanted to do included college counseling, department heads,
and
the
admissions
principal,
officers
from other colleges, and our dean of academics.
Yes.
Now, briefly explain or go over what our current graduation requirements are. And if you could make the clarification about the number of content areas.
Yes.
That would be great.
So for the past at least 20, 25 years, our graduation requirements have been there's for Puerto Rico and for other schools in Puerto Rico, the core content areas, just to go back and put this in context. When we say core context area, those would be the major subject areas, such as mathematics, science, English, social studies, and in the case of Puerto Rico, Spanish is considered a core because it's required in most courses.
So comparing us to independent schools in the States have four.
They have four.
Exactly.
Right,
and
because
we have
for them, the foreign language component is an elective. Not everyone necessarily has to take it. In some schools, they require a minimum, but it's usually 1-2 years of foreign language, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Spanish. It could be other foreign languages. So for us, we already have an additional subject area that students are required to take, and that's the reason why it was it adds to the burden for students. Now, I said that we have 5 subject areas that we have to our students have to take, and in addition to that, for us, the current graduation requirements are that they have to take 4 credits. When I say credit, again, putting it in context, one credit is the equivalent of 1 year. So they have to take 4 credits in each of those 5 subject areas. So every year that they're in school, they have to take a class in each one of those subject areas. In addition to that, they have to take a year of physical education and health, which is done in the 9th grade, and then 1 year of elective. Now, I have to also make the caveat that the majority of our students, in my time, I've never seen anyone not take more electives. Usually, all of our students take advantage of the many academic offerings that we have, so they go well above the minimum requirement of electives. So, but that's basically it. They have
And
five.
I have a clarifying question.
Mhm.
So when you say they need to take 4 credits in each of the 5
Mhm.
subject areas, core
Right.
subject areas,
Mhm.
those 4 credits must be completed between 9th,
Ninth
and 12th grade.
That's correct. Anything that is taken between 7th and 8th grade does not count towards the graduation requirements.
Okay, and that's an important clarification,
Right.
because as most parents know, at St. John's, students take algebra, for example, in 8th grade. In most schools, algebra is a 9th grade class. And so even if they have that credit for algebra, they would still have to take 4 additional maths
Right,
in
right.
secondary school.
Mhm.
Okay, so what are we proposing? Let's put it out there. What's
Okay,
the proposal? And
this
then
is the
we'll
big
talk
one.
about reasoning.
So after all the research that we conducted, we proposed and are planning to offer that students will have to take 4 credits in English. In other words, the English will stay the same. We will also continue to require 1 year of physical education, 1 credit in physical education that will still be done in 9th grade. Now, the big changes are that for the other core subject areas, science, math, social studies, and Spanish, those will now be, students will now be required to take 3 credits between 9th and 12th grade. So that means that they will have a specific class in most of those subject areas that is required each year. For example, I'll use the example with science. They will have to take physics in 9th grade, chemistry in 10th grade, and biology in 11th grade.
And using that example, Mr. Sanabria,
Yes.
would that mean that I can could I still take an AP class?
Yes, yes. These are when I say physics, chemistry, or biology, those are the ones that are, but there's different versions of each one of those courses. There's the honors level, and there are AP levels offerings in those areas. So they would be able, if they meet the prerequisites, which are outlined in our program of studies, they would be able to take the course. Now, when they get to 12th grade, they have the flexibility of either taking a class in science or not taking a class in science, if that's not the area that they're most interested in. The same thing applies with all the other areas. Like, for example, some students are deciding by their junior year that they will study something that does not really require them to take a 4th year of mathematics. And because our students usually will get to 11th grade completing pre-calculus, they do not need to take the extra year in math. Now, it is also important to say, and this is something that our college counseling department has stressed at every point in this conversation, that the vast majority of our students who are aspiring to go to top colleges and universities will be advised to go above and beyond the minimum requirements. So the fact that we're creating this space and flexibility in the requirements does not mean that we're in any way reducing or compromising the quality of our education. And this is the best testament to that, is that all these other independent schools that obtain phenomenal results in terms of college matriculation, test results, and everything else, they have similar requirements, if not more flexible than what we're proposing to implement.
Mr. Sanabria, along with taking away 1 year requirement in 4 of the core subject areas, we are adding some requirements.
Right. And that's also, again, in the spirit and with the goal of preparing students for the future. We will be requiring, beginning with the class of 2023, those are our current 9th graders. They will be required to, before they graduate, at some point in the 4 years between 9th and 12th grade, to take 1 credit of fine arts. That could be visual arts, it could be any of the visual arts, it could be performing arts, theater, or any of those, or it could be in music. In addition to that, in 10th grade, all of our students, beginning again with the class of 2023, they will be required to take the first part of the AP capstone sequence. That is the AP capstone seminar class.
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute for
Sure.
those of the viewers who do not know what AP, I think most of us do, but AP means advanced placement. So APs are college level classes that we offer. And the capstone seminar, what is that?
Okay, so the capstone program was first began about 4 years ago. We were part of the first pilot that the College Board selected to offer this program, and it is basically a class that is not attached to any particular academic department. It's a very multidisciplinary course, and basically what students learn are skills, and the skills that they will learn are research skills, writing skills, public speaking skills, presentation, being able to develop critical thinking skills. And they do that in the first part of the course. They will do that by selecting topics for study, that it could be literally anything. But what the focus will be on the skills that they will use to conduct the research and produce the work at the end of it's both presentations and written work. We have come to realize that students who go through this program become well versed in these skills, and we see the difference and the contrast with students that do not take the program.
And I'll add to that when we have alumni visit us, most of them who have taken the course will tell me, oh my God, Miss Lorraine, that was the most important course I took because it serves me in any class, and I feel like I'm prepared for college because I took that class.
Yeah, so. And some of them, and these are students that are thriving in some of the nation's best universities and colleges, who are telling us you should make it a requirement for everybody else. And we're not doing that because of that, but we took a closer look, and in our commitment and being consistent with the school mission and the vision, we felt that this is a great way of making sure that all of our students are getting that preparation and being ready for that. If students choose to do so, at the end of that course, there's a second part to the course that could be taken in 11th or 12th grade that is called AP Capstone Research. And that is a course that follows and the development of the same skills in the first part. The main difference being that in the second part, students will work more individually, whereas in the first part, they work in teams of small groups. And and then they produce a more elaborate, longer written piece at the end of the second year.
I've seen, and I've mentored students through this process, and I've seen what they produce, and these are college theses, basically.
Right. It's the equivalent to a short thesis that students would produce in college, only that they're doing it in 11th and 12th grade.
Yes.
And another reason for doing the AP capstone as a requirement in the first part in 10th grade is that because so many of our students go into AP courses in 11th and 12th grade and even in 10th grade, this is a great segue for them to get introduced to college level work, which is basically what these courses are. They're doing college level work in high school. So taking capstone is a great way to strengthen themselves, to be prepared to do well in the courses that they will take in 11th and in 12th grade.
Yes. So we spoke a little bit about how science would change, the 3 requirements and that sequence. Can we talk about the requirements and the sequence for the other content areas?
Sure.
What would happen in math?
In math, the students, as it stands today, they would go into geometry in 9th, algebra 2 in 10th, and pre-calculus in 11th. Students who choose to continue with math, and again, our college counseling department has been very emphatic that they're going to encourage students to go into to take 4 years in the core subject areas. They will have the choice, but if a student decides that at the end of 11th grade, they do not need math for their future plans, they have the option of not taking math in their 12th grade and investing the time in something that they're truly interested in taking in another area.
So I'll play devil's advocate, Mr. Sanabria. So if I'm a parent that says, oh, I think that you are becoming less rigorous. And now my child, who I think that if my child doesn't like math, this is the one and only time where they could take math. Why are you taking that requirement away? You're becoming less rigorous and preventing the opportunity for my child to learn something that he won't or she won't ever look at again in college. What would you say to that?
I would say that, again, this is the contrary of that could be true. That parents and students will see that what this will do is will allow flexibility for them to make decisions that are congruous with their future plans. These are not decisions that they will make in a bubble or in a vacuum by themselves. Our college counseling has continued to increase and be enhanced. And now, for example, for the upcoming course selection process, just like we did last year, we have availability for all students to have individual meetings with their college counselors. Even now, with the situation that we're facing, we're preparing to do that through the distance learning, but still be able to have a face-to-face meeting with the corresponding college counselor individually and go over that course selection. So the plans of each student, and they've been meeting now, seniors and juniors have been meeting with their corresponding counselors now for some time. So there's a process in place that has already begun where they're talking about the colleges that they're looking at, their areas of interest, and these decisions will be made together and in conjunction with these factors. So if we have a student that is really committed to pursuing an area that doesn't require math, for example, for as a senior year, that time could be invested in something else, in the humanities or in the fine arts or in science or something else. And at the same is true for someone we could have a student that is very STEM oriented and someone who wants to go to engineering school and needs to take and would prefer to take an elective in an area that is, again, will be helpful for their future. Making the choice to, for example, not having to take Spanish their senior year would allow them that
double up in
flexibility,
science.
right? And double up in math or double up in science at the same time. And again, this would also allow us to carve out some free time for students during the day. That is also important for the upper grades because there are so many things going on in the school. From when you get to be a senior, you're worrying about college applications, you're taking a challenging academic workload, you're involved in extracurricular activities. So this would create the space for them to take the courses that they're really interested in taking, and at the same time, still be able to carve out time for themselves to study, to catch up, to do things that they are pressed for time after the school day ends.
And to do things that contribute to their mental health. And that's another thinking ahead episode altogether. But you mentioned Spanish. Tell me a little bit about how Spanish changes. And I'll tell you, I know that you may be asked, why are we taking away a requirement in Spanish when we want our students to be fully bilingual?
Right. The Spanish requirement is something that we looked at very carefully, and it's probably one of the hardest ones that we went back and forth in deciding. And again, following the same rationale that we use with the other departments, the Spanish program will not change in 9th and 10th grade. It will be the same. For students who are in the regular current, they will take regular 9th and 10th grade Spanish. Now, once they get to 11th grade, we're preparing to offer a series of semester electives that they can take in combination with different, like in conjunction with another course. So they can take one class one semester and another one the next semester. And when they get to 12th grade, they can continue to do the same. We will still also offer our 11th grade honor Spanish, and which kind of leads to the AP Spanish Literature course in 12th grade. There are a few students every year that choose to follow that path, and that will still be available. For the rest of the students who are in regular Spanish, we're preparing to offer these electives that are offered by semester that hopefully will be less structured around a specific strand of literature and would offer more flexibility. Just to think of some ideas, we're thinking of courses that are dedicated to specific periods in time or specific groups of authors that could be studied in depth over the course of a semester, the same way that students would do in college. So hopefully this will entice students to make choices around areas in Spanish that they're very interested in. And it's also important to note that we will still have our L or Español como lengua extranjera program for students who are beginners in Spanish, and also the intermediate courses.
Um, I think that's really exciting, and it's particularly exciting. Our college counselors always say that being bilingual is a superpower that our students bring to the college application process. So we will continue to advise students to finish their 4 years of Spanish. But you had mentioned in a previous conversation that it also opens the schedule up for students who are pursuing a third language.
Right. We will still continue to offer Italian and French all the way through the AP level courses and beyond. So students who want to begin studying a foreign language, every year we have, and I've tried to keep track of this accurately, and it's almost like a third of every graduating class that is fluent in a third language. I was hoping that this would be a higher number by this time, and I continue to encourage students to do that, because again, they have no idea how valuable this can be in their futures. But we're very proud of the fact that the ones who do choose to follow it are becoming truly trilingual students at the end of the academic program. And I feel it's really amazing to have students who have been educated their whole lives in Puerto Rico, or even if it was just high school, and they emerge as fully trilingual.
Yeah,
It's
those are
quite
the
a
ones
feat.
that have the super duper powers,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
and we want to encourage that.
Mhm.
Quickly, because I want to get to the timeline for these changes.
Right.
But quickly, let me tell us about the one major change in the social studies department.
Right. And social studies was one of the areas that we looked at. And again, when I try to think of the number of schools, independent schools in the states that we looked at, and I believe it was 22 that we went in depth into their graduation requirements and compared and contrast. And there was not one single school that had 4 years of social studies required in their graduation requirements. So the vast majority of them have two. Several of them have 3 years required. So we reassessed our program, and it was, I have to say, it wasn't an easy decision, because some people feel that wanted to still have made a case for the importance of it. But we also see the value in reconfiguring the social studies requirements. So the new ones will be, the new change will be that PR history of Puerto Rico, instead of being taught in 12th grade, it will now be taught in ninth grade. Now, that does, and then just to complete the sequence, will be in 10th grade, they will take a 1 year course of world history, and then in 11th grade, they take US history. Again, there's different levels within each one, and if you meet the prerequisites, you, for example, can take European history in 10th, or AP United States history in 11th, or I'm sorry, and AP world history as well in 11th and 10th. So there's options within those, that scope and sequence. And then in 12th grade, they can take an elective if this is an area that they're interested in more than the others.
Yeah.
Now,
I've heard sorry to interrupt you, but I've heard the counter argument that, oh, maybe the students are not mature enough to take Puerto Rican history in ninth grade. I've also heard that maybe they should learn U.S. history first, so they can learn about Puerto Rican history in the context of colonialism. What were the thought? What was
again,
the thought process?
this
for
was
the
a very
decision?
interesting debate, because everyone can make a compelling case for one scenario or the other. Ultimately, we decided to offer PR history in ninth grade, and then world history in 10th, and US in 11th. And I see personally that if we offer PR history in ninth grade, we allow students who don't take any kind of instruction on the history of Puerto Rico since third grade, which is the time when it's previously offered. By the time they get to ninth grade, they get again another opportunity to learn about the history of the place where they live. And being here presents an incredible amount of opportunities for experiential learning. We can more easily move students to places to do on-site learning. There's a lot of opportunities also for cross-curricular learning. For example, with the Spanish department, with the science department, where they can go places and do lessons that involve both disciplines. And in ninth grade is still a time where students will have an opportunity to learn, see things, and then live in Puerto Rico for enough time to internalize and understand things better. Whereas when they get to 12th grade, and even though again there's different opinions about this, my personal opinion is that when they take PR history in 12th grade, it usually coincides with a lot of other things that are going on, and they don't devote the time and the attention that they could if they were to take it earlier. So I think in the long run, it will be a more lasting and enduring experience when they take it as young people. And we're also planning to offer, for those who are really interested in continuing to study history of Puerto Rico, eventually the plan is to offer an advanced elective in Puerto Rican history, maybe 20th century politics and government, that they could take when they get to 12th grade.
See, and I think there's also the argument that if you learn about Puerto Rico first and you understand the colonialism aspect from the living here perspective,
Yes,
that it can enhance your learning of
absolutely.
U.S. history. So
Yeah.
I think it can go both ways. So when will this all happen? I have two questions, right? As a mother, I have an upcoming senior. So by lowering all these requirements, am I going to expect her to take one class next year and then have the
No.
rest of the time off?
No.
Mm.
The idea is all of our students will be, I don't think any family in our community sends their kids here thinking, let's find the easiest pathway and the least resistance to graduation. All of our families send their kids here because they know the quality and the commitment to excellence that we have in the school. And everyone is aspiring to go to a really good college or university and making sure they secure for themselves the best future possible. So with that in mind, and again, it's a process that takes place over a long stretched out period of time, our college counseling department meets with students. They give them group orientations, then they meet with them individually, then they meet with parents, and along the way, these decisions and this structure is put together. So by the time they get to be seniors, the idea is that they will take the required courses ones that they have to take, and in addition to that, have the space and the opportunities to get deeper into those areas that they're very interested in. In some cases, it could be more than more than one class. We've had students that they feel like, I really am interested in business, but I also want to explore my ability and my interest in theater. So they combine both, and that's perfectly fine. That's exactly what we want our students to do.
See,
And it's also worth noting about the question that you had, that we will have in place a specific minimum academic requirement for all seniors to take. So it's not like they can say, I already fulfilled all my requirements, I don't have to take anything else besides English in my senior year. We will have a minimum number of academic courses required, but I don't anticipate that being a concern, because again, our students and our families want for their kids to be as prepared as possible, so they won't be looking for the easiest pathway to graduation.
Okay, well, I hope you're right. No, I'm just kidding. Tell us a little bit about the timeline for implementation. Will this be effective immediately? What happens with PR history?
In parts, the 3 credits in the core subject areas will begin next year with a class of 2021. Those students next year will be have the option of exercising those requirements, and also with the class of 2022, who are our rising juniors. The class of 2023, they will have to comply with the fine arts requirement, the AP capstone seminar requirement, and the PR history. PR history, they'll have to take it in 12th grade. And it's important to add at this point that PR history, because we have several groups that are already past 9th grade in progress in the school, for the next few years, we will have to offer PR history to all seniors and PR history to freshmen. So there will be an overlap for approximately 3 years. And after that, everyone will just take it when they're in 9th grade.
Okay, so there's an implementation that makes sense
Yeah, it's a
for the
cycle.
classes that are already in progress in
Mhm.
the secondary school, and really the entire package, because